Hello, I'm Wayne Visser and I'm Director of CSR International, and I'm here in San Francisco today with Jeff Hamaoui, who's Founder and President of Cazneau. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Now you're doing some very interesting work in the collaboration space, and that's what I'm going to say because I'm going to let you explain what it is you do.
Okay. I've been working on building a product set around complex collaborations. How do you bring people together around opportunities or challenges in sustainability in such a way that they can quickly understand how and where to identify opportunities, identify ways of collaborating, and then accelerate them together.
Okay, and part of this I know brings some of your experience in the whole venture capital and investment space. So how does that all fit in?
Essentially, when you have a very clearly understood market and a very clearly understood marketplace, it's easy to get investment. In other words, you're a venture group and you are an entrepreneur, you come together, everyone knows how to raise capital. Oftentimes when you're trying to do a complex sustainability type business or challenge, you're going to require capital from all sorts of different stakeholders. You'll have government stakeholders, you'll have non-profit stakeholders, you'll have private equity, banking, finance, and so on and so forth. But you'll also have corporate players and so on. And the idea is, these are groups that traditionally don't speak together other than by mistake almost and by happenstance. So how do you bring those types of capital to the table? Financial capital, there's a sort of a layer cake of capital that you can call together, but also how do you sort of understand the different value that these people bring together in terms of capacity, in terms of credibility, and in terms of creativity. We call it the 4 C's, so capital, capacity, credibility, and creativity. Our work helps us research and understand that. Who are the different players? Who has those different capital resources, capacities on the ground, creativity and credibility on the ground? We convene them together around very specific opportunity spaces, and then we help them identify opportunities, identify businesses, build business plans together, and then co-invest in them.
Well, let's get specific. Give some examples of where this might be applied. So a sustainability opportunity that perhaps you've worked in before or that has worked out and may go to scale.
Yeah. The challenge is, if we put the work that we're doing aside, the challenge is that most people don't go about bringing a system of players together in a strategic fashion. So I can talk to you about a case where things haven't worked and cases where things can work and do work. In terms of where this work began or the origins of this work, it's mostly in and around social ventures. You've got people trying to do anything from clean technology or health innovation or education innovation and so on that has a social impact and it has an environmental impact. And often they'll go to one party like a foundation and say, hey, we've got a great venture, we've got a great opportunity that could be transformative. But because they're a for-profit, foundation will look at them and say, I'm sorry, we can't really engage or work together with you. Similarly, on the flip side, they could go to a private equity investor, and because they fall outside of traditional market domains or experience and expertise, they won't get investment either. And in addition to which, rates of return, impact analysis and so on isn't necessarily very interesting to those types of investors. So historically, the way those people have made those businesses work is by stitching capital together from different players, by finding innovative ways to tune into foundation capital or tune into government capital or tune into private equity capital. The sort of the successful case study, the successful case study for this type of work is, well, there are any number of them where essentially you work together with We did a case in Latin America where we were working together with a group of different companies, a group of different governments, and a group of different investors trying to source and understand deals that they could co-invest in together and co-work together. We took that business forwards and eventually landed on a low-cost housing deal where we brought together private equity capital, government capital from USAID and the Dutch government, and a whole bunch of different financial resources from across different sectors, and that was really the seed case to build our work from. But if you look across the board, there's some very interesting cases. Groups like Vodafone working on their platform in East Africa for mobile banking, the M-Pesa payment platform. As a company, Vodafone would never have invested in that. Just because it just didn't have the scale or the scope that they needed as a company. But if you bring together some government funding, which they actually managed to get from DFID, and that was private equity kind of help, even though it was structured as private equity, but it was a grant, that allowed them as a company to explore the business opportunity that then became M-Pesa, that then became a business line for them as a company. So it's really looking at those sorts of interactions. The space is typically referred to as public-private partnerships, and there's this evolution of public-private partnerships in terms of, at one end of the scale you have governments going to companies and saying, give us stuff. And ultimately it's an unsustainable deal, but people get to sign an MOU, wave a few flags, and it's exciting for everybody. And really what we're talking about in terms of this sort of system of capital and system of actors is, how do you get a government to say, these are my goals, these are my needs, this is what I'm trying to achieve, or indeed a foundation, or indeed a corporation, and have the other people who have similar interests align and co-invest beside it. So it's that model. It's around, is there a business opportunity? Is there a way for us to collaborate? And if so, how? And then once you've got there, then you get all the grunt work. You go through that creative phase, and then you need to understand what are the structures that allow us to co-invest most easily, either business, legal, or financial models that allow us to co-invest.
Well, thank you. I think it's part of the real solution here of getting scalability on some of these solutions. So thanks for sharing your thoughts with us today.
Thank you very much.